In a decaying Hollywood mansion, Jane Hudson, a former child star, and her sister Blanche, a movie queen forced into retirement due to a crippling accident, live in virtual isolation in the 1962 cult classic, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane?
I've written a letter to Daddy. His address is heaven above.
I wonder if you can guess who I am. I'm Baby Jane Hudson.
Who the hell was Baby Jane Hudson?
I've written a letter to Daddy saying I love you.
I think the biggest uniqueness about this movie is the fact that you're taking two Hollywood icons from Hollywood's golden age, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, and you're putting them together, which is, I think a magic formula for gold. But more importantly, it's just the fact that you're taking these two classic actors and you're putting them in a unorthodox situation in terms of movie making. It's, again, like, this is a cult movie. I don't want to say this necessarily horror or even thriller. That might be too easy to say, but the movie is certainly not your Leave It to Beaver classic American family kind of thing. It's very very dark and just it's frightening. Not frightening to the point where it's just like jump out of the closet and scare you frightening, but it's frightening of like just the intentions of the characters, the subtextual moments, and again, like the intentions, which I think you can only get with two fine actors such as Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Perhaps like another interesting thing to think about, like I'm trying not to be the person who makes truth out of a Hollywood myth, but from what I understood, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford were two actresses who did not like each other. They had very similar careers, but the two just didn't like each other. And I could believe that because Bette Davis was a known diva. She didn't get along with anybody. She was the classic Hollywood diva, I'll be in my trailer kind of person. Which is interesting because I don't know if it's translated into the characters of the story. I think people tend to like to do that. They like to take real life animosity and say like, oh well, they're not acting. They really hate each other. But you hear stories about like when Bette Davis did this, she really did it. She wasn't being nice. I don't want to give anything away, but apparently there was some real animosity between the two, and there's also real animosity between the characters. So, I'll leave it up to you whether or not you believe that. I'm not going to say that it's true, but I'm just saying that it's an interesting thing to think about when you're watching this movie. Not that I'm a bigger fan of Bette Davis, but I believe that she is a better altogether star. But I'll definitely go ahead and say that she was definitely better in this movie. I believe that she really, really makes the movie. Not to take away anything away from Joan Crawford. But it's just like, again, like this is a movie that could have easily have been bad had you chosen weaker actors, but the performances really make the movie. It's again, like it's different. You're looking at these two stars in their later years, to say the least. They're both pushing 60 at this time, and their best years, I guess, are behind them. But they really pull it off in this horrifying, performance from, particularly from Bette Davis. It's just great reactions, great storytelling using, the reactions of the face and the body, which is not really, if you were to compare this to modern day horror, really, I think kind of puts it to shame or puts it back to where its roots should be in that, it's not about the scare. It's about the lead up to the scare, or what the person is thinking, or and reactions to horrible events. It's like it really, I think it's just a fine example of that. And if you're not frightened of it, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of people who are just like, well, I'm not scared of anything, and I certainly wasn't scared of this. It's like, I'm not suggesting that it's going to scare you. I'm just saying that it will make you uncomfortable, or it should make you uncomfortable. If it doesn't, then you're just a sick pup. As far as the directing goes, I'm not particularly, I don't even remember who the director of this movie is, which I guess is unprofessional of me. Well, sorry. I think this kind of like when you look at your casting, they say that casting is 80% of directing. I think like once you have those two, not to mention Victor Buono, which I'll get to it in a minute, you can kind of just like sit back and let them take it from there. So I'm not saying that the directing was bad, just it kind of went unnoticed, and I hope I'm not being, you know, like kind of like what everyone else was to this person and kind of trample them. I feel bad that I don't that I'm not using their name. But anyway, like I guess that's kind of how you could say it. It certainly wasn't special. If it was anything special, then I would know the person's name. The writing, I think, is a, you know, like you can't just conjure a good performance. You know, you need a good script to sink your teeth into. So I guess that goes without saying that, you know, just like the writing was really good. The song that they keep going back to, "I've Written a Letter to Daddy," it's really just eerie and creepy, and I think it kind of like you kind of see where that sort of style of horror comes from, that whole like daddy's girl kind of, you know, that creepy little girl, you know, that you see like so often these days. I think that's really where it kind of comes from. Don't quote me on that, but you know, if anything, it's a great example of that eerie, creepy kind of tactic, I guess you could call it. As I sort of touched upon before, this is 1962, so it's kind of the transitional period between you know, classic Hollywood of, you know, like clean cut, again, Leave It to Beaver, to your more modern and edgy, you know, the introduction of you know, like not censoring language and you know, lewd conduct and everything like that. So you know, this was really, I suppose, one of those pivotal movies in that transition. And again, like it's easy for me because I just love 1960s black and white. I think the 60s was the last decade that they consistently used black and white. You know, you know, ever since like the late 30s, they've been using color, but it didn't really, it wasn't really the main usage until I believe like the late 60s. So, you know, again, I just think like 1960s cinematography is just incredible because, again, it's more of a, you know, the cinematography, the technology is better, and I just like black and white better in general, and you know, this is another great example of that, like that the world is created by the atmosphere of the black and white. So. You know, my hat's off to the cinematography is basically what I'm trying to say. Another notable that I don't want to go unnoticed is the supporting character, Victor Buono. I hope I'm saying that right. If not, I'm sure one of you will correct me. Very underrated performance. And if anything, the movie is kind of from his point of view at certain points. Of course, he's going to be dwarfed by the presence of Joan Crawford and Bette Davis, but another very notable character. You know, I don't think you see him until like very far into the movie, but I think that he stands out in this movie. So very, you know, very fine job. Wherever you are, fine job. Well, that's all I have to say about Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Let me know in the comments what you thought of whether or not it was a cult classic or horror or thriller, or, you know, your opinion about the genre. Whether or not you believe the real animosity of the characters was real animosity between the actors. And that's pretty much it.
Jane, please, don't do this to me. Jane!